Good morning, Wooden. Welcome back from spring break. I think we only have like 7 Mondays left until summer break. So keep chugging along and stay focused, stay on top of your classes because you're almost done for the summer. Well, so today I want to talk about a little bit of a difficult topic, one that's not very fun for anybody to kind of talk about, but I think it is something that is important for us to discuss, and that is grief. We we grieve lots of things throughout our life. We grieve the loss of people that have passed away. We grieve the loss of relationships. We grieve the loss of pets and our animals that we love very much. Um, there's lots of different small losses and big losses that we experience throughout our life. And so I think it should be a normal conversation and it is a healthy conversation for us to talk about how to handle and manage grief. Now, in this discussion, I'm going to talk a lot about grieving the loss of someone that we love to someone passing away. So, we have had a lot of students this year who have lost loved ones through cancer or illness of some sort, through addiction, through accidents. So, and we've also had many staff members who have had losses this year. Actually, today, as you're watching this video, it marks 3 years for me that I lost my mom to cancer, and she was my best friend. So today is going to be an up and down day for me, but that is okay. That is just part of life and the process. And so we're going to talk about some healthy ways to manage that. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about um, just grief in general. Grief is really messy. There's not a straight line from point A to point B. It is up and down and all around. 1 minute you can feel just fine, not having any thought about it. And the next minute, you can be just heartbroken. So it's an up and down process, and we never get comfortable with the thought of losing someone or not having someone that we care about and love in our life anymore. So when we lose someone, most of us don't know how to talk about it. We don't know how to feel about it. We feel like there's a right and a wrong way to navigate it, and there really isn't. There's some maybe good ideas of how to take care of ourselves and how to address those sad feelings and different feelings that come up in grief, but there is no right or wrong. And I think also when we're talking about grief is just one of those awkward topics that no one knows how to interact with each other about. Our friends and our family don't know whether to ask us how we're doing or if they should talk about the person that we lost or not. So, grief is just messy and it's up and down. And I'm going to show you this picture that shows how grief people think is a straight line a lot of times, that they're going to have this loss and then quickly they're going to bounce back from it. And the reality is it's just this big squiggle mark. So take a look at this picture. So I hope that picture kind of made sense to maybe what some of you guys have experienced if you have gone through this process of grief. The other thing about grief is it feels like when we have lost someone that we care about, that our whole world changes. And it does. Our world changes. Some teenagers describe it as a hurricane or a tornado kind of feeling, taking everything out that is normal in our life. Things are just disrupted. Our routines, how we feel at home, how we interact with different people. And we feel like we're just trying to figure out what this day-to-day life is going to be like without this person. And I think also a big question that we have is often, how are our family and friends going to react about the loss as well? How are they going to handle their grief? Are they going to talk about what's going on? Are they going to talk about this person and talk about memories and things like that? Or are they just going to act like it never happened? So everybody handles grief differently, and it's important for us to find people that we can talk about it with, because that is one of the healthiest ways to manage our grief, is to find people we can talk about our loved one with, talk about the funny memories, talk about the serious moments, all of that. And grief is just intense and loud at times, and other times it's just barely there. And that's why grief, I think, is so confusing and difficult for a lot of people. So I want to talk real quickly about the 7 stages of grief. So I'm going to put this up on the screen and let you look at it. But first, before I do that, I'm just going to run through them real quickly. So the first stage is shock. So the initial surprise and shock of realizing or hearing that our loved one is gone. Denial is the second part of grief. Trying to avoid the inevitable, trying to avoid, this isn't real, this didn't really happen. They're not gone forever. That kind of denial that it's really happening. The third is anger. So that frustration, that anger that the person isn't here, that they didn't get better, they didn't recover from what they were going through. Anger that they're not in our day-to-day life. They're not with us to talk to us, to give us advice, all of that stuff. The fourth is bargaining. So kind of looking for ways to make this not real. Um, you know, God, if you don't let this really happen, then I will get really good grades, or I will be a better sister or daughter or son or brother or nephew or cousin, whatever it may be. The next one is depression. So finally realizing the reality of the situation. It's just hitting us that it it's real and they are not here anymore. So that sadness definitely can lead to depression at times. The next phase is testing. So, kind of seeking realistic solutions, trying to fix and see what works to make us not hurt anymore. The last one is acceptance. Finally finding a way forward. We're finally accepting they are not here, and we're taking one step at a time to kind of continue moving forward in our life. So, those are 7 stages of grief: shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and testing. I'm going to put this up on the screen so that you can see it. So, I hope that seeing those different stages of grief can be something that helps a little bit and helps you kind of normalize how you've been feeling. Um, so, I want to talk a little bit about different ways to manage our grief, healthy coping skills that we can use to manage our grief. So, one of the top ones that I think, so just remembering those 7 stages of grief is super important. Remember what we talked about a few minutes ago, though. Those don't necessarily go in order, they jump all over the place. And one minute we can feel like we're in acceptance, the next minute we can feel like we're in that anger place. So just because it's laid out in this order doesn't necessarily mean that that's how we actually experience it in real life. But those are kind of the main feelings that we experience when we go through grief. So, I want to talk about some different things that are super helpful when we are going through grief. So, these are kind of things to try if you are in this place. One, I think the biggest thing is to, especially when grief is hitting us really hard, just to remember to breathe. Taking those long, deep breaths and exhaling. Sometimes it just hits us so hard, it just takes our breath away. So, being able to practice breathing is super important. And I think a part of that is sometimes we just need a break. We need to take a time out from some different responsibilities that we might have that day. So if you're here at school and it just hits you out of nowhere, or you can feel it building, ask to see me. Come, you can take a break in my office. We can talk about it, or you can just sit and we don't have to talk at all. But sometimes we just need a break. We just need a moment to kind of think through what we're feeling, let ourselves feel, and then be able to move forward. Second, moving our body. I know it doesn't seem like it's always possible, but sometimes when we're experiencing big emotion, it's really helpful to exercise. Go for a walk, walk the dog, um, go shoot hoops, go for a run, go lift weights. But moving our body is super important, or turning on some music and dancing. The next is to call or text a friend. It is super important to find someone or a group of people that you can talk to about how you're feeling. They may not understand, they may have never experienced the same kind of loss that you have, but everybody can experience or understand a sense of sadness, or a sense of loss in some capacity. So it is super important to stay connected to your people, your group of people that support you throughout your life. The next one is write it out, journal. That's been something that helps me sometimes, is when I have a lot of emotion going on and I have days where I'm really missing my mom. I write it out, either just write out the feelings or I write a letter to her or something along those lines. Number 5, if you're artistic, maybe drawing or painting or coloring. Um, Number 6, give space for those feelings. Just let yourself feel them. Sometimes that means like sobbing, crying, Sometimes it means ripping some paper up or going and to a batting cage and hitting something. Um, but find ways to let those feelings out. The other thing is to be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up for having these emotions come up out of nowhere many times. It's not like you are intentionally creating those feelings. That's just a part of the grief process. They're just going to show up out of nowhere, but be kind to yourself. Let yourself and remind yourself that you are going to be okay. It's just right now, it's hard. The other thing is to ask for help. There are lots of grief support groups for teenagers. So if that is something you're interested in, just let me know and I will give that information to you. I just think it's super important with your family, especially, or your friends, to kind of push to talk about the person that you lost. Talk about the positive memories that you had. What did you learn from them? What do you remember most about them? Talking about the person is super important because they're always with you. There's a book, and I cannot remember the name of it, but it's just such a good book. It's a kid's book, but I think the analogy is super helpful of that we always have this invisible string. I think that's the name of the book, Invisible String. We have this invisible string from our heart to heaven to this person that we lost. And that invisible string is always with us, which means that person is always with us. And so just remember that this person loved you and you loved them. And remember what they wanted your life to be. And do your part to share their legacy, share their memory, um, and be the person that they wanted you to be. And so, again, if you're having a hard time and you are going through the grief process, please reach out to me or talk to one of your teachers that you feel close to. But we are here to support you and to help you. Come to me, come to Mrs. Mertz, Miss O'Neill. That is what we are here for. And I hope that you feel comfortable to do that. So I hope the rest of your day is good. I know this was a heavy subject, but there is sunshine. The sun does shine again, I promise. Well, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. As a class, I want you to talk about, have you lost somebody that you're close to before? And what was the most helpful thing for you getting through that process? So just discuss that, and I will see you around. Thanks. Bye.